Welcome to youTurn Radio. Here at youTurn Radio, we believe in big-hearted communities and small government. Join your hosts, NADIA RENNER, Tom Murphy, and Lora Steinmann, as we work to put local governments on a diet and champion the charities that support your community. So come on, join us and let's turn it around.
Welcome to youTurn Radio. Happy Thursday. We are back and live. We got Eric joining us via telephone, and Tom and I are live and direct here in the studio. We have a really good show today, and today is our final show as well, right, Tom?
Yes, and I'm really excited for this show because our guest is, to a certain extent, this is why we exist, because as you know, by now at show 46, our mission is big-hearted communities and small government.
Right.
And today I think is a really good argument or conversation about why governments should be small.
Absolutely, and I think we also have an amazing guest, a special guest. We have Miss Lora Steinmann in the studio. Welcome to youTurn Radio. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm looking forward to this.
And we're going to share her story, and like you said, we're going to have a really good final show because I think it also wraps it up it will wrap it up for us here. But we also had this type of conversation before. And we went to the building department here in the county. We interviewed people there, but Ms. Steinmann is going to share with us her story with what she's going through with the county and the building department, right?
Exactly, and what we want to communicate really is just the larger issue of when governments are large, how difficult it is to actually get things done.
Yep. And here at youTurn Radio, we believe in big-hearted communities and small governments, like we mentioned. Last week, we kind of concentrated the whole show on the big-hearted community part of youTurn, and we had Children's Fund. We have Cherie Hunk, who joined us last week. For all of the youTurn Radio shows, you can go to youturnradio.com and find all these different shows that we have there. We also have a building department show there that you should definitely check out, because I think like that was a little bit of the introduction of the challenges that you might go through when you're trying to build something here in the county.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fun that we're almost kind of bracketing the whole list of shows we did, because I can't remember if it was number 3 or 4 show where we did that building department issue thing, and now our final show is going to be the same issue from the perspective of a general contractor.
Absolutely. And also, before I forget, here at youTurn Radio, if you call in, you get rewarded. That's right. If you call in 909-792-5222, that's 909-792-5222, we get to spin for charity. And what that means is that we spin the wheel, and whatever amount it lands on, that's what we're going to donate to your favorite charity here in the Inland Empire. And that's our wheel there. So that's 909-792-5222. So let's get started. Let's get into our show today. So, Ms. Steinmann, you're a general contractor. What are you trying to build here in the county?
Well, right now I'm trying to build some duplexes in Phelan, in the unincorporated area of the county. And my son Jeff and I are building 2 of them on a parcel that'll ultimately allow 19 units. It's the only piece of multiple family housing in the entire area, and it's very much needed. I just finished my last home in Wrightwood, a chalet house that I'm currently offering for sale, and that's what I'm doing right now.
So you've had experience. You actually you've had a lot of experience. Tell us how long you have tried to get permits approved for this particular project.
Well, for the duplexes, it took me 2.5 years, and for the house, 1.5 years, which is a long time.
All right, absolutely.
So for our listeners, just like if they don't get out much, if they only leave the, if you will, the down below section of the county to go to Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. So if they're on 15 going to Las Vegas, after they get to the top of the grade there at Cajon Pass, a couple miles down the road, you take a left and then go about 5-6 miles or so, and you're in in Phelan or Phelan? Correct me.
Well-
I never know what.
Nobody else does either.
Oh, okay. So both pronunciations are acceptable.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the property that you want to, the multifamily unit you want to put up is there in the Phelan area.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So continue.
And since we're just starting out here, let's go into a little bit of her background. She's pretty experienced and been doing this for quite some time that I'm aware of.
Let's jump into that a little bit. We're gonna mess up our schedule a little bit, but how long have you been a general contractor?
Well, I started building in 1981. I got my contracting license in 1991. So
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay, I know a little bit about your family. You have 10 children, right?
Yes. I had 11 children. I
Okay,
have
this
10
is a little bit
children.
of a diversion, but I mean, I have, I'm sorry, but I only have 4 kids. and like, I can't keep up with 4. You had 10. What possessed you in 1980, when I'm sure you were really busy with your family, to go ahead and kind of add, if you will, the responsibilities of building to your already very full plate?
Well, actually, I always was interested. Every house I lived in, I would see what was good and what was bad about it. And we moved a lot in the beginning of our marriage. I didn't start building till my kids were mostly grown and in school. But I always had my nose in a plan book. I just loved it. And then I took drafting classes at Victor Valley College. And I started working for a draftsman just a couple days a week. And that got me interested in it. Then I had a son-in-law at the time who was a builder, and I did the drafting and the plans and the financing for him. And then he left and left me with 5 houses that were just partly done, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I had a good friend who walked me through it, and then I decided to get my own license, and I studied, and I was able to become a general contractor.
For being a woman in this kind of industry, I feel like there's not a lot of them, and especially maybe back then. What challenges did you come across back then?
Well, very first house that I had to do on my own, I think I had 32 corrections at one of the inspections. So evidently I wasn't doing it so well. But And at first, you know, the subcontractors didn't take me too seriously, but once I studied and knew what I was doing, I had no more problems. And the guys I have that work for me are wonderful guys. They're hard workers, and I've always been treated with a lot of respect and found it a real creative and challenging thing to do.
You said you had 32 corrections back then.
Yeah.
From 32, and you keep and you just keep working, and you keep developing this.
Yeah.
From then to now, how different is it? Because 32 back then, like 32 changes now would cost a lot of money. And I
Yeah.
learned that because I went to the building department and I
Yeah.
interviewed people that are dealing with getting permits out.
Yeah.
Some were Googling. Back then, there's no Google, so
Yeah.
we kind of have help with technology because, you know, we can look up certain things.
Right.
But back then, it must have been very difficult.
Well, those were 32 real ones. The ones you get now aren't real corrections. They're just somebody trying to make a job for themselves, writing down, you know, some little thing for you to add to your plans, but they have nothing to do with the building process. And that's the problem, really, at the county. They have hired too many engineers to overlook now what I have to have an engineer or an architect now. Everything has to be done on computers now. It's different. But I pay for that, and I take all the liability, or my engineer does, and yet they have 6 engineers hired to overlook what we're doing. And at least 7 departments you have to go through. That's what takes so long. And they're not real corrections. They don't really correct what we do, but they keep it, and they put some little note there. And they know, a lot of them know it's foolishness, adds to the cost of the house, nothing to do with the structure of the house, but you have to do it, and that's what's frustrating.
When you say they're not real corrections, like what? Can you give us an example for the people like myself that don't know? What would be like something that's real and something that's like, come on, that's not real.
Just adding a note saying that you have to do certain things that you know you have to do. And, but then they did something, you see, because it's come to them, it's sat on their desk, they have to come back with something.
So your first inspection, you said you had 32 corrections. What would be a specific correction that you got, if you will, dinged for on that first job?
Well, I think I didn't have a footing under one
Okay.
wall.
All right. So
Which was not good.
Okay. And now, what would be, if you will, a common correction or note that is holding up your work? I mean, I can understand you didn't put a foot in
it's
the
not
wall.
just the corrections. It's you have so many different professionals you have to work with now. With this job I'm doing in Phelan, for instance, FEMA, it's federal government, state government, and county government that come up with these things. FEMA has made it so that we have to put these holes all around the house. We have to have 1 square inch for every square foot of house, so that the theory is if you're in New Orleans and the water comes, it'll wash through and go out your house. Well, we're in the mountains, and the water doesn't come through. If anything comes, it's mud, and you don't want that coming under your house. But they sweep with the same broom everywhere and absolutely make you do things that you know aren't right to do, and we just have to do them, you know.
Now, this property that you're building out in Phelan, sorry I'm laughing, but that's hilarious. I'm assuming it's not in the bottom of a wash out there.
No, and it's like this, and they made me put it in the middle of where the garages were, and I said the water can't take a right angle turn. I don't know why I need that, but you do it because, and they know it isn't right, but they're afraid.
So out here in the desert, right? Where the only flood you ever see.
We'd be glad to have a flood, yes.
Yeah, the only thing you ever see is like a full gully.
Right.
You're putting something in on, sounds like kind of a side of a hill, but not a gully.
Yeah.
And FEMA is requiring you to put
holes,
basically channels through.
All through the under part of the house, right?
So just so we could be a little bit more clear, with all the rain that we've gotten, nothing like that would happen anyways here or there in the desert.
It
wouldn't
doesn't
flood at
sound
all.
like-
No, not where this
even
is.
with all the rain that we've had, that
No.
wouldn't even come close to it.
No, it didn't. We're building right now, and we had a lot of rain, and nothing didn't bother anything. Because we're building with a subfloor.
Right.
I don't know whether you know the difference. Everybody does a slab, and the people I dealt with didn't seem to know the difference either, and it was a real problem for me. But we wanted to, because if you're building the desert on a slab, you have to excavate 4 feet down now and then recompact that back so you get a hump. And since this was kind of a little gentle slope, I didn't want to hump. So we thought we're going to take it into the building and put a subfloor like we do in Wrightwood. We have to do it there so that there's a raised foundation. But I had no end of trouble with them not getting to understand what we were doing. Because so many of the people I deal with have never been on a job site, and that's a problem. They come right out of school, and they don't know what you're saying.
I was just going to ask that. Is it that they're too young in these positions that they don't have enough experience to say, you're right? Obviously, you've had so much experience. Do you think that's the problem, that they're too young, that they really haven't experienced, they haven't really built, they don't go out? Do they go out to location to see this stuff?
The inspector does. And luckily, we have an inspector that was a builder, and he's a pretty good guy. He's a very good guy. But in years past, there was a man named Len Davis who ran the...
Always spoken like somebody who has a house that isn't done yet.
Wait, what do you mean by that, Eric? Explain yourself.
She's giving some compliments to the inspector because...
Oh, yeah, that's right, because I have to, yes, you're right on that. No, but years ago, we had this fellow, Len Davis, who had been a builder, and he was running the department in Victorville, and it was just so easy then. He understood, and he would work with you. But...
And you said Mr. Davis actually had experience in the,
he was hands-on, yeah.
Okay,
he knew.
So he had worked, if you will, on the other side in the industry, and then hired.
And these
into the
people are
county.
good people, and they're just trying to do their job, but it's just what they've been. Somebody has decided we have to do, so nobody will ever sue us. And I sat down with all of them down there in San Bernardino when I started this, and I said, when did anybody ever sue you if a house went bad? They're going to come after me and my engineer. why do you have to have this level? And it's all fear-based rules that they make for you now. You know, we have, and every year it gets worse. In 2020, everything is going to have to be solar. Did you know that?
I had heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that ups the house.
Like
That
all the
costs-
new houses,
Everything that you build.
buildings,
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
I know
Yeah.
that.
And then, you know, even like the sprinklers. Go ahead, Eric.
So when they brought up Lynn Davis, just you know, there were some onerous rules then, and Lynn Davis would take the people he knew and had worked with, and you know, somehow or another he would get their plans turned around for him and get them to work, and that was his focus. And it was so appreciated that when Lynn Davis passed away, I think they got the biggest event center in the high desert, and
That's right.
it was overflowing with people. There were thousands of people that came.
There were lots of builders standing there crying. That's for sure.
And it was all builders, and they were all, and you know, so tremendous amount of respect for somebody who could break through all that. And but since his passing, it you know, there's just no help for it.
So, do we have any record of a Lynn Davis inspected building out in that area falling down or washing away in a flood or anything like that?
Well, I've built more than 100 projects, and they're all standing. And when I started, I drew my own plans, took them down. Maybe they'd keep them a couple of days. There was no problem. But now you can't do your own drawing. It has to be all engineered, and so they have nothing to fear, but they still are very fearful. And they say the state makes them do all these things, and most of them know that they're not necessary. But, you know, for instance, you have to deal with waste management.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you know, it could be fear-based or it could be revenue-based.
Well, it's both, yes, for sure.
Wait,
I mean, they charge you when you go in there. They make you put a big deposit up. Is that correct?
Well, you put a deposit up, and then you pay for your permit, but that's not what is so expensive about what they're doing. It's the different professionals that you have to deal with in the process in order to get a permit. Like, you know, I'll just name a few. I have to deal with environmental health. I have to get an elevation certificate that's engineered from an engineer to show that I'm high enough or that the ground is high enough that it won't flood. I have to deal with the fire department. We didn't used to have to pay them, but we do now. The land use department, waste management department, water quality, WQMP, road department, green building standards. I have to have a licensed person draw the plans for me. I have to do FEMA requirements, and it's all of those things. Somebody is
all people
fear-based.
that haven't generally built a house, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
And it used to be, you know, when Lynn Davis was there was one guy that was there, and he knew the contractors that had built houses over a period of time, and he gained a reputation of not having any problems. And it was a reasonable assumption that they knew what they were going to do, and he would figure a way of getting their plans put through and get them to work in a matter of a week or so, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And you know what, the houses were not, they're not better now for all of this stuff than they were then, and they are much more expensive because of all that.
Well, I'll give you, for instance, they make us make them so airtight now. Now we have to, and they're trying to, this for energy saving. Everything is about energy. And now we have to put fans that run full time in a house in order to bring air in because they've made them so airtight. So try to figure the rationale behind some of that.
Okay, so you have a house now that's so tight that, and they did that to save energy.
Yeah.
And now you have to add fans, which obviously
because
are
you couldn't
burning
open
energy.
a window, God forbid, and let the air in. No, it has to.
On that list of experts that you just rattled off, as a contractor, I'm assuming that none of those people that work for the county are actually producing any product for you. You're paying somebody else to do the environmental study or whatever, and then delivering it to them, and they're just reviewing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so really no services other than, if you will, a mother or government may I
Yeah.
is the only service that they're providing you.
Well, they have plan check people that are they have 6 engineers down there, that are overlooking what you did. And when I asked the head of the building department, why do you do that when you don't have the liability? He said it gave them better insurance rates. So I don't know the reasoning behind that. They didn't used to have that. It used to be the people that worked there could check and see if something was really missing. But I understand that they don't want to, but if they make you have a licensed engineer or an architect to do it, then why do they need anything more? I don't understand that. That's just making jobs. When we had the Depression in 2008, I thought things were going to really get better, but they got worse. They hired more people. I don't know why they need so many people and all these departments. A lot of these weren't existent even then. But now they've made a big deal about it, with we have to say how much wood we bring in, how much we left, how much cement, what did we do with it. We have to show we're not taking it to a waste management place. We have all kinds of work to do that we didn't have to before. And they made the sprinklers mandatory, which I know one house I built, there was a fire in the laundry room and it didn't go off. 3 places I had flooding from them. I hate them, and every builder hates them. I think that somehow they make you think it's motherhood and apple pie, and they're doing you a favor.
My family has a home kind of up in that area, and when they built it in '87, a sprinkler system was required. It's 2 times it's either gone off or leaked and damaged the house, and we still haven't had a fire. No. And you have to have, I think, 168 degrees right under that thing to make it work. To make the X go on, yeah.
So you're usually not standing around.
What do you think their purpose is of hiring all these people, going through all these people to get a permit, and prolonging a process when technically it's because this is creating jobs in the county, right?
For sure.
So why do you think the building department now is making you go through all these people and is prolonging?
Let's be clear, this is creating jobs for people who work for the county, but it's preventing jobs for people in the county who don't work for the county.
Right. So do you think it's just like, let's just have jobs for the county but not for actual people that want to build, the construction people, what do you think the reasoning for that is?
It's all fear-based, and then they say the state makes them do it, so a lot of it comes from further up. But I really think that our supervisors could fight some of this and say we don't need to have this. But I have gone to them, and I've gone to our supervisor, and I don't think he has the power to change anything. It's all pretty well cast in stone.
Who's the supervisor in that area?
What?
Who's the supervisor for that area?
Robert Lovingood.
Oh, okay.
Which, by the way, we did invite Supervisor Lovingood to either call in or appear on the show today, and
yeah.
We have a joke here at youTurn Radio. Every time I've asked for a supervisor to come on our radio show, they decline our interviews. Don't ask me why.
Except for one.
Except for one. Janice. Yes.
Janice, Supervisor Rutherford. She did an interview with us.
Right. But other than that,
Well,
nobody.
she didn't come on the show, but she did get some time to do an interview. And we did have the supervisor from Riverside County on 3 times. So.
Oh, really? Oh, that was pretty good.
Well, that's a pool contractor over there, Jeff Hewitt, that got elected supervisor. And, it's kind of breath of fresh air, but unfortunately it's not in San Bernardino County.
Well, it's, I guess it's a power struggle somehow. No, I don't know how you're going to start firing people and get it where it should be, because it seems like it never goes backwards. It just keeps building, and that's to the detriment. I just read a couple weeks ago that our new governor wanted to figure out what was the problem with building in California, so he was meeting with all the mayors. Well, he should meet with the builders. We can tell them. They get in our way, something fierce. I mean, the thing with the holes, that's just one thing. There's so many ridiculous things we have to do. And every year it gets a little bit worse. And you tell me who sits there and thinks these things up? I don't know. But they're afraid not to do it. And then their attitude is when you deal with them, it's not, how can I help you? It's, are you kidding? Are you really going to do this? It's, I've sat in the building department so many times. I sit there and write poetry sometimes because I just have to do something. And I see people leaving there crying, and, they're not real helpful. They're afraid themselves of making a mistake. And they're good people.
Yeah, which also brings me to the other thing. I went to the building department and I asked them if I can have somebody kind of explain what the rules and regulations are about getting a permit, just general information, so we can have it here on youTurn. And they also declined my interview when I asked. Nobody wanted to talk to me about, like, what are the rules, how do you get a permit. They gave me the runaround. Like, nobody really wanted to just say, this is what you do. Because they gave me it depends what you're building, it depends what you want to do. And pretty much what they said was it's all for safety reasons. But nobody really gave me a straight answer, like the reason for them, like what are the regulations to get a permit.
I understand
So
that.
I think it makes sense to what you're saying, like almost like as if nobody really wants to take responsibility of approving things. It's like you're saying, it's very fear-based, it seems like.
It is fear-based. And I think down here in San Bernardino, when they first got all these different departments in there that they have to deal with, they didn't know what to do. I think they're contemplating maybe hiring someone to walk the plans through these different things, and that might be helpful because it'll go to one person who tells you one thing, and then you come back and somebody else is telling you something else. So, because they all have a little different thing, that they want to do. So it's hard for anybody. I think somebody who hasn't been in building, I don't know whether it would be very easy for them to get a permit today. Whether they would need professional help to do that.
All right. Well, we're going to go into a commercial break. When we come back from the commercial break, I do want to ask you more about bringing it to the supervisor, what they said, and what that was like when we come back after the commercial break. We'll be back with more youTurn Radio. Welcome back to youTurn Radio. We have a great show. We're here with our special guest for today, Miss Lora Steinmann, general contractor, and is kind of going over her challenges and her experience with the building department. And you've expressed that it's been very challenging. All the steps that you have to go through now compared to before. You've been doing this for a very long time. Before the commercial break, I asked you, because you said you even brought it up to the supervisors. What was that like? What was the process of you once you went to the supervisor and said, hey, this is kind of unfair. This is not working out. What was that like?
Well, I think they tried to help. I think they said something, but, it didn't make a whole lot of difference. I had to do everything they said in order to get that permit, even if it was stuff that didn't make sense. I had to do it. So, they don't have that much control over. I understand that most of the control's been given to the county office there. They don't, your elected official, it doesn't have as much power as he used to have. Back in the old days, they did. And I know when Bill Post was supervisor, he was able to go in there and do things in the building department. And then, he's got himself in some unfortunate situation, but nowadays they don't have. Didn't they give away a lot of their power to the county administrator?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Particularly one that they gave away was now, if they want to communicate with anybody in the county, they essentially have to communicate through the CEO, which obviously is going to take a huge. One thing that I think you've mentioned a couple times that I think is a real kind of underlying philosophy for this show and for the Red Brennan Group, which kind of underwrites the show, is that concept of that the problem is not so much the people in the system. It's the fact that there is a system, that it is growing.
Yes.
And that there is nothing constraining that growth.
Well, absolutely. So the very fact that in 2020, I think I mentioned you at the break, you're going to have to put solar on your home. Now imagine, that's a whole new department that's going to come and inspect that. That's a whole new industry that's going to put it in. It keeps growing and growing with all these rules. Some of them are what's making it so costly that young people cannot afford housing in California.
And one thing that really concerns me about that is, and I believe that residential building is a highly regulated industry in terms of what you can actually put up. Would it be safe to say that there really hasn't been like substantial changes in the way a building is built in the past 30 years since you know what I'm saying? We're still using, foundations, sticks, that type of thing.
Right. Concrete.
The key point here is government regulation, I believe, also inhibits that creativity. Let's do this different. There's got,
Oh, yeah.
And with solar, now that it's regulated, you're going to have folks building stuff that will only go onto the building because it passes the regulations.
Right.
And that innovation that's out there in that industry right now is just going to die.
Well, it's dying. It is. I'm not going to be building anymore after this. There's one other builder in Wrightwood. He's going to quit. And we don't see new people getting into the industry. We do not see, most of the shop classes at the high school are closed. We don't see people coming in. Most of my subs are in their 50s, 60s, and their kids are all going and doing something with a computer. They're not coming and learning this. So we have a lack of labor also. But because if there's no profit in it, nobody's going to do this. They're going to find other jobs. They're going to go down and become a building inspector because they're going to have a salary.
but no buildings to actually inspect. 'Cause nothing's being built.
Right. That's right. But it's true. It's a problem.
And I think a lot of the reason you don't hear a lot about this is because, there is no effective, action that can be taken up out of raising, the problem. And, it's going to somebody who has very little time for it. Everything has to go through one person for the whole county, with, all the tens of thousands of people they have working there, and the $5 billion budget and whatnot, and absolutely everything has to go through him, and he's only concerned that he gets to the next day or whatnot. You don't have that voice. He's not accountable for being elected, so you end up with builders that they know nothing's going to happen from it, so they're going to have to go back and deal with the same people. And if you raise the stink about anything, then you're likely to get.
You're going to the bottom of the pile, right?
You're going to get twice as many corrections the next time you go.
That's right.
So we get to hear about this because this is pretty much at or near the end for a long career of building, but you're not going to normally get a lot of voice put to the problems that
That's right. That's right. So it's fair on our side too. We try to keep doing what they say, but we mumble and grumble amongst ourselves, and my subs included. They're just scratching their head at some of the things that we have to do that make really no sense. And it's like you say, it's like building blocks. One thing is on top of the other, and you better be good at the bottom. And you better be true when you're building something, or it's going to show up later on. None of that has changed. It's just that now they'll put more steel in the foundation. They'll put deeper ones. They'll put wider ones. They'll do something else that just keep changing and making it expensive to build.
All because they're
afraid.
afraid of something.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right. I think it's pretty fear-based. But
and
then
you're a little bit aware of the real estate market too. What's the effect of all that?
On the real estate, people can't afford to buy homes, and that's a real problem.
And when they can't afford to buy homes, what do they got to do?
They got to move out of the state of California or the county.
Or they got to try and rent a home, and it's not just the people that own homes that
Right.
it affects. It affects the people that are renting homes.
Well,
Because when
right
people
now you
can't buy a home,
right.
they got to go rent a home, and then the rental market is through the roof as well.
Well, and it's very impacted. Now, I'll give you, for instance, I built a home in Colorado. I went in with my plan. I paid them their fee. I had the plan. I had only 2 inspections, electric and septic, nothing else. So their philosophy must be, if you want to build something that falls down on top of you, it's your own fault, which is what I believe.
Right.
But compare that to what I have to do here. You know, this project, they treated it like a commercial project. It wasn't. It was multiple family housing. And we have to do so many things. We have to dig this ditch in the back for water, to catch the water that's never going to come, but we have to catch it in a little pool. And we have to, satisfy all these people.
Put a retention pond on your property for
Yes.
water that's never going to be there.
And fence it and
stuff like
all of
that.
that. Yeah, and pay.
And so let's compare it. It's, you did a house recently, and what did that look like? As opposed to going in there, paying $300, getting your plans approved, building a house, which was, I would assume, pretty similar to other houses you've built. You didn't change anything just because
No.
They didn't put you through the paces. You build pretty much the same way anyway, I would assume, and that's one side of the story. And then out here, you're what, a year and a half to get a permit, and how much money?
Yeah, well,
And
it's all what they make you do, Eric, and I would say because of the things that they make you do, it probably put the cost of that house up at least $60,000 or $70,000. I mean, I had to pay a geologist to come and check the soil and make sure that I wasn't on the earthquake fault, even though I know exactly where it is, and so did he.
So before you start breaking ground and pounding nails, and
Before
pouring
you got a
concrete,
lot of
you're
money in it.
60 or 70,000 into the
Well,
thing?
no, but I say the whole process has probably made the cost that much during the whole thing. With different
Yeah.
professionals you've had to have coming and different things that you never had to do before. You had to prove. Well, for instance, they made a rule, this is exactly, that in Wrightwood, they did make you have parking places before. Now you have to have a covered parking place, an uncovered parking place that cannot be the driveway. So I made another driveway. Well, that necessitated me paying an encroachment permit in a little road, not a major highway, and having somebody come and inspect it, and paying them to come and inspect it. I encroached properly. I mean, it's just every time you turn around, it's something like that.
Wow, so all the money you've invested so far,
Mm-hmm.
It's been almost 2 years and a half, right, that you've been working on this project?
For the apartments, yeah.
Yeah, for this particular project, you invested so much money. So, I mean, at what point this must be very frustrating, number one, but like at what point do you say, this is enough? Or what happens? Like, what's the process at this point? Because it
Well,
almost
I'm
seems like-
probably not going to develop the other part of the property. I'm going to probably try to sell that to somebody else, because maybe people that aren't small builders like me can get by with more. I don't know. But this is it for me, because I don't want to be angry every day.
Right.
So I'm going to finish these, and we've already got people that want to rent them. We won't have any problem because there's such a need. But it isn't going to cost out what we've had to do, because they want you to fix the road for them. They want you to fix everything. They expect you to do their work.
They expect you to do so much, but then if we think about it, which brings me back to the point that we just made about then renting these places out, and then they have to be a little bit more expensive, because I mean, you have invested so much money. It almost seems like it's only fair that the price is a little higher just because of all the investment when you know the story behind the building,
Right.
But and it was something that we were talking during the commercial break. Somebody like for myself that's younger, I feel like I cannot move out of my parents' house because it's so expensive to even think of buying a home, number one. Number two, even if I were to go in an apartment, I feel like I would have to get a roommate, and I'm still not owning something. So it makes it even more challenging, not just from the building perspective of building something, but also from a consumer side where you want to build, or I was just saying, I feel like I'm not a real adult sometimes because I can't like, do that part, like either invest and buy a home or go into, say, I want my own apartment, because when you do the math, it's like, well, I kind of need a roommate, and then, I mean, that's practically like living at my parents' house.
I understand. That's a real problem for young people. I don't know how they get around that in this situation, because nobody seems to care that they are increasing the price of the house with all these rules.
Increasing the price, and they're reducing the variety and the selection dramatically, because you're only going to get a big builder who can go and maybe pay people to get what they want at there, and they do things one way, and they do it in scale. But the innovation comes from small builders like that, and they can do things differently, nicer in some ways, different in other ways. And when you're going to have to deal with all these people that don't have the same knowledge base that you do, but are telling you to jump through all these hoops, after a while, you just disappear. And I would say, if anyone did a study on it, they'd find that, there's a dramatic decrease in the number of builders.
Oh, for
in the
sure.
state.
Yeah, because you're not going to do something and lose money. That's something that sometimes people don't understand nowadays. Because it's a big difference if you've got a steady paycheck or if you have to go out there and do something where you're going to get it yourself. It's a big difference.
Yeah, it's different. It's different over on the government side because they apparently have the ability to raise taxes one way or another, legal or not.
Yeah.
And
well, they're not paying for all those people
do,
from the fees. They're definitely paying. Aren't they, Eric, paying for them through taxing? That the building department, all those people in there are not making a living off of the few of us that are building.
No, yeah, I think the question was, are all the people in the building department, are their salaries paid based on the fees that are
They're
collected?
not, no.
Yeah,
No way.
No
Well,
way.
they established a rate in my interactions with them. And this might just be for commercial and not residential. They established a rate of $220 an hour at least 10 years ago. I can imagine what it is now.
Wow.
That you paid for everybody in that building department. Now, I would hope if there's 2,040 working hours in a year, if there's $220 an hour, that's $400,000 per person. So I would hope that that's not what they're paying, but that's what they charge you. And they did some study that said when we're done with everything, that's the fully loaded cost for it. So in a commercial setting, they make you go in there and make a big deposit, and then they bill against that deposit. And when they run out and their people have spent more time on that than they originally thought, then they just ask you to increase your deposit. So it's almost like a law firm, and it's a profit center for them. Certainly the more work that those people can do at $220 an hour, if they're paying them $25 an hour or whatever they do pay them, they're making money on it, and it's in their interest to do it. And that's what comes out of a non-elected CEO giving direction to set it up that way.
What would you do? This is kind of the Shangri-La question. How would you, if you were queen for the day, how would you structure the building department at the county, or would there even be a building department? Is there a better solution? Is there a better small government solution? Do we even need a building department in your opinion?
Oh, that would be nirvana. Have no building department. I'd like that. I'd like that fine.
We could put that together.
That would be fine.
She'd do this for another 30 years.
Well, I think that came into being more like around the 50s, didn't it? I think people I know they built in Wrightwood in the 30s and 40s with no permits, and those places are still standing. I've done some remodels in some of them, and one of them, the insulation was newspapers. It was great fun to read them. They were real old newspapers.
That's funny.
So, but it's certainly, probably you're going to have a better product if you have some rules, but they've gone way too far. Way too far.
Right. Yeah.
And it isn't like the elected people who haven't been presented with alternatives. We suggested that they could do a known builder program where they take people within the county that have been building in the county for a number of years and have never had any complaints. If you have a complaint, you fall off the known builder thing, and those people should be able to get their plans processed like they could in the Len Davis days within 2 weeks without all this, because they've never had a problem. And then you can still run all those traps on maybe people who don't have that experience, who are coming from out of the county and haven't got that reputation until they get that reputation. But in that way, they would be able to, direct a lot of work to small builders within their county. B, they would be able to cut down the cost dramatically for residents in their county, and they would not be chasing everybody out. They would become a county where builders would like to go work that are good builders and establish a reputation and, cut through the BS, more so than they could in other counties. And that hasn't caught the slightest gear in any discussion with the elected representatives in San Bernardino County.
And you have to take into account that we as builders have to have insurance, liability insurance, and insurance to cover everything that we do. And all of our subs have to have that. So, when you're dealing with somebody, that person, if you're a licensed contractor, is pretty much assured that you're going to take care of whatever is a problem. And all the years I have built, 38 years, I've never had a lawsuit because I stay awake nights worrying about things. And I've got subs that are like that, and I like people like that to work for me.
Yeah. And you can create the right incentives in something like a known builder program where, look, if you start getting complaints in here, then maybe we have to run you through this, grief that we run you through anyway. But if somebody's gone 38 years and never had an issue, why keep running them through that and even making it worse and worse each year until they finally throw in the towel and say, I don't need this grief anymore. And then you lose, someone who's making a different variety and a better product available to the consumer.
Well, housing is a very, very important industry, and it's suffering terribly in California. And it generates an awful lot of tax money for the government that's not happening. And I think you find that people I don't know what they do. What do young people like you do? They have to move out of here, or they have to do what you're doing?
Live with my
what
parents.
do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, double up.
Or have two jobs, different type of incomes coming at the same time.
A mother and father both working, and the kids running, nobody around, and it makes it really hard on young couples.
Absolutely. What advice would you give for somebody that still wants to come into this industry, like somebody that's young and wants to get into this industry? What advice would you give them?
Move out of California.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Move to Colorado. It sounds like it's a lot easier in Colorado.
Absolutely.
You wanted something better than that. I don't know what I would tell them. I would tell them that it's a very difficult thing. That you're going to be dealing with a lot of things that maybe you're going to have to figure out piece by piece because it isn't anything anybody's going to be able to teach you. It's a great surprise every time. Each house I do is more surprises.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of going to wrap it up for us here. I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your experiences with the building department and having you here on youTurn Radio Live with us.
All right. Thanks for asking me and giving me the opportunity. I think when I retire, which I'm going to do, I'm going to try to spend some time helping young people that want to do this. So
that'll be great.
Okay.
That would be really awesome. And that's going to wrap it up for us here at youTurn Radio. Today's our final show here at KCAA. We are no longer going to be broadcasting here, but you can always email us and get in contact with us at info@youturnradio.com. That's info@youturnradio.com. You can check out our website, youturnradio.com. And also follow us on our social media, youTurn Radio. Well, it's actually youTurn_radio, Instagram. But just go to the website. It'll be easier. You'll find all that information and great shows like this one on youturnradio.com. Thank you.